If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Don't believe me? Here's 5 reasons why. First, it's free. Second, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. 3, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and so many more. 4, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. And 5, it's everything you need to make a podcast, all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome to the Counter Narrative Podcast, a show designed to change the way we talk and think about education. By sharing stories of successes and triumphs, we aim to challenge the dominant narrative that often negatively portrays our disenfranchised populations. I'm your host, Charles Williams, an educator for 15 years, a current school principal in Chicago, and an educational consultant. Let's get started. This episode is a Pause to Ponder segment. These bi-weekly sessions will allow me to share with you my personal thoughts and reflections on a wide spectrum of topics as they relate to education. It is my hope that you will be able to take something from these segments and apply it in a meaningful way as you continue to do amazing work. Remember, while we all have different roles, we all have a single job: educating our students. Today marks the first week of our return to school. While I am, in all honesty, pleased with the way things went this week, I recognize that there have been challenges. I realize that this is much harder and more complex than we may have anticipated, and that is the driving force behind this episode. Remote learning is vastly different from crisis learning. What we did during the last 7 weeks of the school year was not remote learning. Instead, we were responding to a crisis, and we were attempting to continue a practice that was already in place in an attempt to maintain some semblance of normalcy. With the waiving of grades, final assessments, and even graduation requirements, we really focused on ensuring that our students and their families were coping with the drastic and sudden shift in our daily lives. We were not worried about the acquisition of new knowledge, and instead strive to minimize learning loss. In short, when the pressures and stresses associated with stringent academic performance metrics were lifted, the purpose of learning shifted. The return to learning remotely brings with it a combination of stresses resulting from a conditioned desire to adhere to now unknown metrics, while simultaneously feeling the pressures of teaching students grade level content despite missing a quarter of authentic instruction. We are seemingly being held accountable to a set of standards that are being developed as we gain a better understanding of our situation, despite understanding that the conditions could shift at any moment. But despite this, despite existing in a situation that would drive most from their professions, I have consistently witnessed educators do the unimaginable. They have devoted hours preparing for this return to school. They have created learning spaces from wherever they are working. They have researched and learned technology that may be brand new to them. They have designed engaging lessons for students with whom they may never have any contact. And they have participated in thought sessions where they've planned out various scenarios and responses. And yet, when this week hit, reality, as it so often does, swiftly ripped through their careful preparation. Screens were frozen, links stopped working, passwords mysteriously changed. There were screams, tears, and laughter, although I think the last was probably not rooted in humor. As I walked through my building and conducted my usual check-ins, I could sense the despair, the frustration, the helplessness. So I did the only thing that I could think of. I used my words. The following is a message that I shared with them. Dear staff, I was going to share this with you tomorrow, but I think you may need it sooner rather than later. This morning I read an email that struck home and immediately wanted to share similar sentiments with you. Nobody really knows how to navigate the crisis we are in. Some of us have much more experience dealing with issues, and some of us may have a better grasp of working with tech. But regardless, this is new for all of us. Know this. I do not expect perfection. When I told you that I anticipate hiccups and failures, I do. I've had my own as we've got school up and running, and I am still working through others. Consider the words of Jill Seiler when she said, "Big things happen when we take the next best step, over and over and over again." That is all I'm asking of you. Do the best that you can possibly do. Then do it again. Then do it again. If you do, then we will be okay. Now, I would love for us to be amazing. I would love for us to reach tremendous levels of success. But I will also accept us being okay, so long as we can figure this thing out. Coming back to Jill, remember that the feeling of being overwhelmed and even inadequate is part of the growing process and not a sign that you are not the person for the job. I am happy that you are here. I am happy that you are part of our Plato family. It is my hope that both teachers and administrators listening to this episode will take away this one simple idea. Take the next best step. I know it may not feel like it. I know that you may be feeling lost on a journey for which you prepared for so long, but you need to keep moving forward. After all, if we start by doing what is necessary, we can then do the impossible. And suddenly, we will find ourselves doing the impossible. Before I close, I would like to thank Dave Burgess for his email that he sent to me this morning, because it provided me the fuel and inspiration I needed to pour into my people. I hope that you all have a wonderful year, and whatever you do, keep taking those next best steps. Until next time. I want to thank you for listening to the Counter Narrative Podcast. If you like what you're hearing, please be sure to like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. You can also follow the show on Twitter at the CN Podcast and the host at _CW Consulting. Take care.